You ever get that creepy feeling that someone's watching you? Like really watching you? Not the casual, someone glanced at me type. I'm talking the kind that makes your stomach drop, even though you're just living your regular old life. Yeah, that's exactly where I was when I realized a stranger wasn't just passing by. He was following me. And not for an hour. Not for a day. For 3 damn days straight. All right, let me take you right back to day 1. So, I'm this quiet old lady living in a peaceful cul-de-sac where the loudest thing in the whole neighborhood is my TV when I'm trying to hear the weather forecast. I don't bother anybody. I go on my little morning walk, I bake my cookies, I watch my shows. My life isn't supposed to have plot twists, but oh, that week? Man, it threw me into a real-life thriller I never asked for. It started on a Tuesday. I remember because I was wearing my favorite navy cardigan, the one I only put on when I feel like treating myself. I'd walk down to the grocery store like I always do, slow, steady, minding my business, when I noticed this tall guy leaning against a light pole across the street. Didn't think much of it at first. People stand around, right? Maybe he was waiting for someone. But then he started walking behind me. Not close, not far, just enough. Enough for me to feel those little needles of awareness poking the back of my neck. You know, that sense that tells you something's off before your brain has even caught up? Yeah, that. I turned into the cereal aisle. He turned into the cereal aisle. I reached for oatmeal. He pretended to check the granola but didn't touch a thing. I told myself, girl, relax, you're being dramatic. But then at checkout, he didn't buy anything, just stood near the exit. And when I stepped outside, so did he. Same distance, same pace. That's when my heart did that weird double thump thing. I hate that feeling. It's the kind that makes you walk faster, even though your knees don't agree with you. I didn't want to panic. I didn't want to call attention. I just wanted to get home, lock my door, and pretend the world outside didn't exist. But deep down, I already knew something wasn't normal. And trust me, what I discovered later, it hit harder than fear ever could. You ever wake up and just know the day's gonna feel wrong? Like the air's too still, the morning's too quiet, and your gut is already whispering, don't step outside today. That was me, the very next morning. And yeah, the stranger was still there. Only this time, he wasn't keeping his distance. I swear, when I stepped out onto my porch, holding my little reusable shopping bag like a shield, the world felt heavier. The kind of heavy where even birds don't sound right. I locked my door, tucked my cardigan tight around my shoulders, and started walking toward the usual bus stop. And then, there he was. Same man, same jacket, same slow, measured steps. But today, he wasn't across the street. He was on my side. At first, he acted like he was just out for a stroll, hands buried in his pockets, shoulders slightly hunched, head lowered like he was minding his own business. But I've lived too long, honey. I know the difference between coincidence and intention. And this man's presence? It was intentional. It was too damn intentional. I shifted to the other side of the sidewalk. And guess what? He didn't follow immediately, which somehow felt even creepier. Instead, he stayed behind me at this weird angle, like he wanted me to know he was there, but didn't want to make a scene. My heart was thumping so loud I was sure he could hear it. When I reached the bus stop bench, I sat down slowly, trying not to look shaken. He stopped about 30 steps away, not walking, not pretending, just standing, watching, like he was waiting for something or someone, or maybe just waiting for me to react. You know what's wild? Every instinct I had said, run, but you can't outrun fear when you're my age. Your knees file complaints before your brain even decides. So I did the only thing I could. I acted normal. When the bus arrived, I stepped on, paid my fare, and found a seat near the front. The doors were about to close, and I felt this tiny spark of relief, like maybe this day wasn't going to suffocate me after all. Then I felt it. That shift in the air when someone big steps onto the bus behind you. I didn't have to turn around. I knew it was him. He boarded. He didn't sit. He just stood in the aisle, holding the rail, positioned exactly where he could see me in the reflection of the front windshield. And Lord, I swear I felt my soul crawl. I kept thinking, why me? Why for 2 days straight? Why everywhere I go? But at that moment, I didn't want answers. I just wanted to make it home alive. And little did I know, day 3 would break everything wide open. You know that moment when all the tiny, creepy signs you've been ignoring suddenly connect, like someone just flipped a switch in your brain? Day 3 was exactly that. The day the fear finally made sense. And the truth hit harder than anything I was prepared for. By Thursday morning, I was exhausted. Not from walking, not from chores, but from being scared. Fear ages you faster than time ever could. Trust me, I barely slept. Every little sound outside my window made my heart jump like it was training for a marathon. But I still got up, still brushed my hair, still put on my cardigan like armor. Because what else was I supposed to do? Hide? I'm old, not helpless, even if my bones disagree half the time. As soon as I stepped outside, I felt it. That familiar chill. That shift in the air. I didn't even have to look. I knew he was somewhere nearby. But today, he didn't bother hiding. He was right across the street, leaning on a mailbox, pretending to scroll through his phone. But the second I locked my door, he lifted his head. And our eyes met, not for a second, not a glance. A full, deliberate stare. I froze. My hand literally forgot how to move. He didn't smile. He didn't look angry. He just studied me, like he was trying to figure out if he should come closer or stay back. That stare? It felt like someone pressed ice straight into my chest. I turned away, pretending to check my bag, and started walking. Slow, steady, praying he wouldn't cross the street. But footsteps don't lie, and his were getting closer. Not running, not charging, just closing in like he was done waiting in the shadows. My breathing went shallow. My palms got sweaty. And suddenly every house on my street felt too far away to scream for help. I stopped in front of Mr. Parker's yard, pretending to admire his roses, which, honestly, have been dead for 2 months, but I just needed a second to think. And then I felt it. A presence behind me, close enough for me to feel the warmth of someone's breath mixing with the morning air. He whispered, soft, low, careful. "Ma'am, please don't be afraid." Oh, sweetheart, I was afraid. I turned around, slowly, ready to scream, swing my bag, do whatever I had to do. But what stopped me wasn't his size, or his stare. It was the look in his eyes. They weren't threatening, they weren't angry. They were sad. Deep, tired, broken, kind of sad. Before I could say a word, he glanced around nervously, stepped back like he didn't want to scare me more, and said something that made my whole body lock up. "I've been trying to tell you something for 3 days, but I didn't know how." Tell me what? Tell me why he'd been following me like a ghost for 72 hours. Tell me what he wanted. I didn't get the chance to ask, because right then, a car I didn't recognize turned the corner. Slowly. Almost too slowly. And the way the man's face changed when he saw that car, that was the moment I realized. This wasn't just about me being followed. This was something bigger. Much, much bigger. You ever see something so ordinary like a plain old car creeping down your street, but your gut screams, "This is wrong. This is really, really wrong." That was the moment everything in me flipped. Because the second that car turned the corner, the man who'd been following me for 3 days didn't look scary anymore. He looked terrified. And that scared me more than anything he could have done. The car was nothing special. A gray sedan, windows tinted just dark enough to make you squint. It rolled down the street slow. Too slow, like it was scanning every house, every porch, every mailbox. The stranger, the man who'd been shadowing me, stepped back from me like he didn't want to drag me into whatever was coming. His hands went up slightly, palms out, not toward me, but toward the car, like he was saying, "Not here, not her, not now." I didn't know whether to run inside, scream for help, or pretend I suddenly turned invisible. My heartbeat was so loud I swear the birds went quiet to listen. The car slowed right in front of us, engine humming, windows still up, no movement inside. The man leaned toward me just enough to whisper, "Please, go back inside. Don't let them see you with me." Them? Who the hell was them? I tried to speak, tried to get any words out, but fear locks your throat before your brain even realizes it. I could barely breathe. The driver's window slid down, so painfully slow, and every inch of that darkened glass dropping made my spine tighten. Inside, I saw the faint outline of a man. He wasn't looking at me. He was staring dead at the stranger. No smile, no nod, no expression at all, just recognition, cold recognition. The stranger subtly shook his head, barely moving, like he was sending some kind of message. But whatever message he thought he was sending, it wasn't working. The sedan rolled a few feet forward, then stopped again, like it wanted to make sure I saw it. Make sure he saw it. Make sure we both understood something was about to happen. And then, the weirdest thing in the world happened. The man inside the car lifted his hand and tapped 2 fingers against his temple twice. A signal, one that clearly meant something. Something the stranger understood immediately, because that's when the color drained from his face. He backed away from me fast, not like he was running from me, but like he was trying to save me by getting distance. "Please," he whispered again, almost desperate. "Inside, now. And listen, I'm brave when I have to be, but I'm not stupid. When a grown man with fear in his bones tells you to get inside, you go." I stepped back toward my porch, my fingers fumbling for my keys like they suddenly forgot how to work. My heart was thundering, my breath shaking, and my mind racing with every possible worst-case scenario. Before I closed my door, I glanced back one last time. The stranger was standing in the middle of the street. The car was idling in front of him. The tension between them was like a wire pulled tight enough to snap. And the second I closed my door, I heard it. A sound so sharp it sliced straight through the quiet morning air. A car door opening. Slow. Heavy. Intentional. Whoever was inside that car was stepping out. And I had no idea that moment was about to drag me into a truth. I never asked for a truth that would shake everything I thought I knew. You ever feel your whole world tilt, like the ground under you just shifts, even though you're standing still? That's what happened the moment I peeked through my blinds and saw who stepped out of that gray sedan. Because right then, I knew this wasn't random. This wasn't coincidence. This was personal in a way I didn't understand yet. I kept the blinds barely open, just enough to see without being seen. My heart was pounding so hard I had to press my hand to my chest to keep myself from shaking. The car door swung open, and a tall man stepped out. Not rough, not messy, not your average thug or troublemaker. No, this man was too neat, too controlled, too calm. Black jacket, pressed shirt, short hair. Eyes sharp enough to cut through steel. He carried himself the way people do when they're used to being listened to, used to being followed, obeyed, feared. And the stranger who'd been following me? Yeah. He took a full step back the second that man's shoe touched the pavement. I couldn't hear what they were saying, not clearly, but I could see every tense movement, every shift in their posture, every silent threat hanging between them like electricity. The stranger kept glancing toward my house. Not in a "I'm coming for you" way, but in a "please don't let her see this" way. The tall man noticed. Of course he did. Men like that notice everything. He leaned in closer to the stranger, speaking low, controlled, almost too calm. The stranger shook his head hard like he was refusing something. The tall man took another step closer. And then the stranger said something I did hear through the window because he said it loud enough to break the silence. "She doesn't know anything. Leave her out of this." My entire body froze. She doesn't know anything. About what? My first instinct was to lock every window, every door, every possible entrance, but I was afraid even moving would draw their attention. The tall man didn't react right away. He just stared at the stranger, long enough for my skin to crawl. Then he did something that made my heart drop straight into my stomach. He pointed, not at me, not at the house, but at the stranger, like he was giving an order. The stranger's shoulders tensed, his jaw tightened. He looked trapped, like he was standing in quicksand and every move made it worse. Whispered something, too soft for me to hear, but whatever it was, the tall man didn't like it. He took another step forward, crowding him, boxing him in. The stranger flinched, actually flinched, and I realized something wild. The man who'd been following me for 3 days wasn't hunting me. He was hiding behind me, protecting me, using me, or trying to warn me. I didn't know yet, but something in my gut said the danger wasn't coming from the man who followed me. It was coming from the one who just stepped out of that car. My phone was on the table behind me. I thought about calling the police. I thought about screaming. I thought about opening the door and demanding to know what was happening. But before I could even move, the tall man turned around, slowly, deliberately, and looked directly at my window, right where I was standing, right at me. I dropped the blinds so fast the cord nearly snapped. My heart wasn't just pounding anymore. It felt like it was trying to claw its way out of my chest. Who was he? Why was the stranger scared of him? Why was I suddenly part of whatever this was? And most of all, why did that tall man look at me like he already knew who I was? Ever feel like the walls are closing in on you and the people outside know more about your life than you do yourself? That's exactly how I felt that morning, standing behind my blinds, heart hammering, trapped between two men who seemed to hold my fate in their hands, and neither of them was speaking to me. Yet, I stayed frozen, barely breathing, peeking through the blinds. The stranger, the one who had followed me for 3 days, kept shifting nervously. Every time the tall man looked away, he would glance at my house, muttering under his breath like he was rehearsing a warning or a plan. The tall man didn't say a word, not one, just his gaze, piercing, calculating, like he could read everything without hearing it. And every time his eyes flicked toward my window, I felt like my soul was under a microscope. I realized then I wasn't safe inside my own home. Not yet, not until I understood why all of this was happening. Minutes felt like hours. The tall man finally gestured, subtle, almost polite, but it was enough. The stranger nodded. Then he did something that shocked me. He stepped toward the curb and paused. He glanced at me again, eyes wide, almost pleading. His hand brushed against his jacket, then he muttered one word loud enough for me to hear. Hide. I dropped down behind my couch, heart racing so fast it felt like it might explode. My mind was screaming questions. Hide? From him? From what? From the man outside? And then the strangest thing happened. The tall man started walking down the sidewalk, slow, controlled, like he was hunting without urgency. Every step he took echoed in my mind like thunder. The stranger backed away from the curb, seemingly giving up, then glanced at me one last time. There was fear there, but also resignation, like he knew I had to see what was coming. I wanted to peek again, but my hands were shaking. My knees wouldn't move. My brain kept repeating, "This is bigger than you. Don't interfere." And then I saw it. Something so tiny, so subtle, but it made my chest drop. The tall man carried a small envelope in his hand. Just one, nothing flashy, nothing obvious, just an envelope. Why did he have that? Who was it for? And why did my instincts scream that it wasn't meant for me? Yet everything in the universe was pulling me into it. Before I could process, the tall man stopped, crouched slightly, and whispered to the stranger, words I couldn't hear, but the stranger's reaction told me everything. Fear, guilt, hesitation. And in that instant, I realized whatever was about to happen next, I was already part of it. You ever feel your stomach drop so fast it feels like your whole body just empties out? That's what happened the moment I realized that whatever those two men were arguing about, whatever they were hiding, whatever danger was creeping around my street, it had finally reached me, and not by accident. When I finally gathered the courage to lift the blinds just an inch, the tall man was no longer standing over the stranger. He was walking toward my mailbox. Slow, unhurried, like he had all the time in the world. The stranger saw it too and shook his head violently, mouthing, "No, no, don't!" But the tall man ignored him. He walked right up to my mailbox, opened it without hesitation, and placed that single envelope inside, smooth, deliberate, like he'd rehearsed it. Then, he closed the lid gently. Too gently. Like it wasn't a threat, like it was a message. My lungs locked, my fingertips went cold. And for a second, I actually thought I might faint. The stranger stepped forward, half reaching, like he wanted to stop the tall man, but one sharp look froze him in place. That look wasn't angry. It was commanding, final, like a warning carved in stone. I sank deeper behind the couch, peeking just enough to watch the scene unfold. The tall man turned his head slightly, scanning the houses, scanning my house. His eyes brushed over my window, not stopping, not staring, just passing by, but still enough to make me duck instantly. I didn't want to know what was in that envelope. I didn't want to acknowledge it existed. But I also knew, whatever was happening, my name was now in the middle of it. The stranger stood there trembling, running a hand through his hair, like he'd just watched something irreversible happen. Then, with no signal that I could see, the tall man returned to his car. The driver's door opened. He got in, slammed it, shut. Engine started, tires rolled forward, and just like that, the gray sedan pulled away, disappearing down the street as silently as it arrived, leaving the stranger alone. Leaving me alone. Leaving that envelope behind. The stranger looked at my house again, jaw tight, breathing, shaking. For a second, I thought he might come to my door, maybe warn me, maybe explain. But he didn't. He turned around and walked away fast, not following the car, not lurking, not hiding, just leaving, like he was done fighting a battle he'd already lost. Minutes felt like hours after he disappeared. I sat on my floor, staring at my front door like it might burst open. My mind was screaming, "Don't go outside. Don't you dare open that door. You're too old for this. This isn't your problem." But my heart whispered something else. If you don't see what's inside that envelope, you'll never sleep again. And so, after what felt like an eternity, I stood up. My legs wobbled, my hands trembled, but I walked to the door anyway. I took a deep breath, opened it, and stepped onto my porch. The street was empty, too empty. Even the air felt still. I forced myself toward the mailbox, each step heavier than the last. I swear I could hear my own heartbeat echoing through the whole neighborhood. I opened the mailbox slowly, and there it was. A plain white envelope. No stamp, no sender. Just one thing written in bold, sharp handwriting. My name, first and last. My breath caught, my chest tightened, and right then, right in that moment, I knew this envelope wasn't just for me. It was about me. Ever open something thinking it's just paper, and suddenly your whole world flips upside down? That's exactly what happened when I finally, trembling in every finger, opened the envelope. What I saw inside didn't just scare me. It shattered everything I thought I knew about my life, my neighborhood, and even the stranger who'd been following me for 3 days. Inside the envelope was a single piece of paper. No letter, no explanation, just handwriting, sharp, deliberate, intentional, and 3 words at the top that made my blood run cold. Don't trust anyone. I froze. My mind spun. My hands shook so hard the paper almost tore. Don't trust anyone? What the hell did that even mean? Was it a joke? A prank? Or was it a warning? Then I noticed the rest of the page. It was a map. My street, drawn perfectly, every house numbered, every mailbox marked, and one house, mine, circled, in red. Below that, a single sentence, written in a smaller, frantic script. They're coming tonight. Protect her. My chest tightened. My knees threatened to buckle. I didn't know who they were. I didn't know who her was, if it meant me. But everything inside me screamed it was me. I slammed the envelope shut, tried to calm myself, tried to rationalize. Maybe it was a prank. Maybe it was someone from the neighborhood with a twisted sense of humor. But my gut, the part of me that had survived 3 decades of life and more than its fair share of trouble, knew this wasn't a joke. I looked around my street, empty, too quiet. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Then I remembered the stranger, the one who had been following me, the one who had whispered, hide, the one who had risked everything to, what? Protect me? Warn me? I realized he wasn't just a shadow behind me anymore. He was my only chance. I needed to find him. I needed to know what he knew. I needed to survive the night. And suddenly, everything clicked. The 3 days, the way he had been following me, the fear, the hesitation, the warning. He wasn't the threat, he was the warning. But the question remained, and it was the most terrifying one of all. Who were they? And how were they connected to me? Because deep down, I knew the truth I was about to uncover wasn't just about a stranger. It was about everything I had ever trusted, shattered in a single, terrifying night. Ever tried to chase the shadow? Not a literal shadow, but someone who might save you. Someone who holds the only answers to the nightmare you're trapped in. That's exactly what I had to do that night. Heart racing, shaking, every step feeling like it could be my last. I grabbed my coat and slipped quietly out the back door. The street was eerily silent. The gray sedan was gone. The tall man, nowhere in sight. Only the stranger, my reluctant guardian, and a whisper of hope. I had no plan, no weapons, nothing but the envelope clutched tight in my hand and the tiny flicker of courage that said, "Follow him." He moved fast, but cautiously, like a cat stepping through a field of broken glass. I ran to catch up, my breath freezing in the cold night air. Every shadow on the street, every rustle of leaves, every distant car horn made me jump. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw him, the stranger, glance back. His eyes widened in warning, almost begging me, "Stay close, but don't make a sound." We turned down an alley, narrow, poorly lit, the kind of place even the bravest person avoids. My knees wobbled and my chest burned, but I kept moving. Behind me, I swore I could hear tires. Faint, distant, but closing. The stranger stopped suddenly, pressed his back against a brick wall. He whispered, low and urgent, "They're close, too close. If they see you, it's over." Over. The word slammed into me like a punch. Over? What could be over? My life? My freedom? I nodded, silent. My hands shook so badly I nearly dropped the envelope, but he didn't let go. Instead, he motioned for me to follow him into a narrow doorway. It led to a staircase that descended into shadows. We slipped inside, cold stone walls closed in. The only sound was our breathing and the faint drip of water somewhere below. I wanted to ask questions. So many questions. But I knew better. One wrong word could ruin everything. Finally, we reached a small, dimly lit basement room. The stranger finally turned toward me. His face was pale, strained, like he'd carried a burden far heavier than mine could ever be. And then he said something that made my stomach twist. "I've been protecting you for 3 days. And now it's your turn to understand why." I realized then everything I thought I knew about the stranger, the car, the man, the envelope. It was only the beginning. Tonight, the truth would come out. And it would change everything. Ever waited for the moment the whole puzzle snaps into place? The moment where all the fear, all the tension, every sleepless night, every anxious glance suddenly makes sense? That night, in that shadowed basement, that moment came, and it hit me harder than I ever could have imagined. The stranger turned toward me, eyes serious, voice low but urgent. "I wasn't following you to hurt you. I was following you to protect you. And now you need to understand why." I froze, disbelief written all over my face. Protect me? After 3 days of terror, after my heart nearly gave out multiple times? But his gaze was steady, unwavering. I had to listen. He motioned toward a small wooden table in the corner. On it were several photographs and documents, all clearly organized, all clearly pointing toward something I hadn't even guessed. "These people," he said, pointing toward the envelope map, "they've been watching your family for years. They're dangerous. And you're the key to stopping them." I shook my head. My hands trembled. "Me? Why me?" He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Your son's research, your husband's past, their enemies think you have something, information, access, leverage, that they'll do anything to get. I had to keep you safe until you understood the threat." I stared at him, trying to digest. My son? My husband? Danger? Enemies? My life felt like it had turned into a thriller overnight. He paused, then whispered, "Tonight, they come. You must decide, stay here and hide, or confront them with the truth you now hold. But whatever you do, you cannot do it alone." Fear hit me like a tidal wave. I wanted to scream, to run, to lock myself in forever. But somewhere deep inside, courage sparked. The stranger wasn't just a protector. He was a guide. And if I didn't act, no one else would. I grabbed the envelope again, shaking hands, racing heartbeat. Every piece of the puzzle was here, in my hands. The map, the warnings, the names. And now, the knowledge I needed to survive. And in that basement, under dim, flickering light, I made a decision. I wasn't going to be just a target anymore. I was going to be the one who finally controlled the story. You ever feel the air change? Like the whole world suddenly bends, tightens, and whispers, "This is it. This is the moment everything flips." Yeah, that exact chill hit me the second we climbed back up those basement stairs, because danger wasn't coming anymore. It was already here. The stranger placed a finger over his lips, signaling me to stay silent as we stepped into the narrow hallway. My heart hammered so loud I swore whoever was waiting outside could hear it. He peeked through the crack in the door. His jaw clenched. His voice dropped to a whisper made of pure adrenaline. "They found us." My breath caught. Every instinct screamed at me to run, hide, disappear, anything but stand there like a deer in headlights. But he grabbed my wrist gently, grounding me. "You're okay. Stay behind me. No matter what." Before I could respond, a heavy thud slammed against the door, then another and another. Someone was trying to break it down, someone strong, someone close. The stranger pulled out his phone, typed something lightning fast, and whispered, "Backup's 2 minutes out. We just need to survive until then." 2 minutes. It sounded like eternity. The door shook again, nearly flying off its hinges. This time, a voice followed. Deep, cold, so calm it made my skin crawl. "We know you're in there. Hand her over," and we walk away. My knees almost buckled. That voice, I'd heard it before. At the store. On the street. It belonged to the man from the gray sedan. The one who'd been following me long before I ever saw the stranger. The stranger mouthed, "Don't react." But it was too late. The door exploded inward, splintering wood across the floor. 2 men stepped in, one tall, built like a tank. The other, the sedan man, with eyes that looked like they hadn't blinked in days. The tank stepped forward, blocking the exit. The sedan man smiled slightly, like he'd been waiting for this moment. "You should have stayed home," he said, his voice smooth and terrifyingly casual. "You've made things complicated." The stranger shifted his stance, not threatening, but ready. I stayed behind him, my hands shaking so violently I had to grip the envelope just to keep from collapsing. Then the stranger whispered, barely audible, "When I say, go, run." My eyes widened. Run? To where? There was no exit except the doorway those men now blocked. But before I could question him, things exploded into chaos, fast, violent, and louder than anything I'd ever lived through. In the blur of movement, one thing became terrifyingly clear. This wasn't about following anymore. This was about survival. Ever been caught in a moment where every second counts? And the difference between life and death depends on a single decision? That's exactly where I was, heart pounding, hands trembling, stuck behind a stranger who had risked everything to protect me, while 2 men who'd hunted me for days now stood mere feet away. The stranger moved first, swift, precise, and calm despite the chaos. He grabbed a heavy lamp from the corner and swung it at the tank, the big man knocking him backward with a thud that made the floor vibrate. The sedan man lunged at us, fast and calculated, but the stranger twisted, ducked, and delivered a precise strike to his side. The man grunted, staggered, and for the first time, I saw fear flicker in his eyes. My heart screamed at me to stay down, but the envelope was still clutched in my hand. I realized then, whatever this was, I had to do more than survive. I had to act. I stepped forward, my voice shaking but loud. "Stop! You want something from me? Take it. Just leave me alive." The sedan man froze for a second. His eyes narrowed at me, scanning my face like he was weighing a decision. The stranger took that moment to position himself between me and the attackers, every movement smooth and protective. Then, almost in unison, everything changed. The sound of sirens sliced through the night air, loud, sharp, and precise. The tall man from the car, the one orchestrating this nightmare, must have called them, or maybe the stranger did. Either way, reinforcements were here. The attackers froze. The tank man growled, ready to fight to the last, but the sedan man cursed under his breath, realizing the tide had turned. Before I knew it, police officers stormed in, shouting commands. The 2 men were surrounded. They had no chance. My body shook with relief, disbelief, and adrenaline all at once. The stranger turned to me, face streaked with sweat, exhaustion, and relief. "It's over. You're safe now," I promised. I wanted to cry. I wanted to collapse. I wanted to scream for joy and terror all at once. But more than anything, I wanted to understand. Who were these men? Why had they been after me? And why did the stranger risk his life for a complete stranger like me? The envelope, still in my hand, seemed to hold the final answer. It was more than just paper. It was the key to understanding everything. From the first day, I felt eyes on me, to the terrifying chase through the streets, to this moment where my life hung by a thread. As the police led the two attackers away, the stranger finally relaxed, leaning against the wall like a man who had carried the weight of the world for 3 days straight. He looked at me, eyes softening. "You need to know the truth. Everything you just went through. It was never random. It was protection, guidance, and the chance for you to see who you really can be when faced with fear." For the first time that night, I nodded. I finally understood my life wasn't just about surviving. It was about realizing the strength I never knew I had. You ever go through something so terrifying, so life-shaking, that when it's over, you realize you're not the same person you were before? That's exactly how I felt that night. After 3 days of being followed, after danger breathing down my neck, after uncovering truths I never wanted to know. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was awake. I was aware. I was in control. The police had taken the two men away. The street was quiet again, but this time, it felt like my street. Mine. No shadows, no silent watchers. Just me, standing in the glow of the porch light, gripping the envelope that had changed everything. I opened it one last time, feeling the weight of its contents, the map, the warning, the instructions. Everything made sense now. Every warning, every step the stranger had taken to protect me, every sleepless night. It was all to give me a chance to act, to survive, and to reclaim my life. The stranger stood beside me, finally smiling softly, almost like a mentor seeing his student rise. "You did it," he said. "You stayed calm. You trusted when you had to, and you ran when you had to. That's strength." I smiled back, feeling tears sting my eyes. But the tears weren't just from fear anymore. They were from relief, empowerment, and the knowledge that I had faced something unimaginable. And I was still standing. I looked down the quiet street. My neighbors' houses slept under the moonlight. The gray sedan would never return. The tall man would never threaten me again. And the stranger, well, he had vanished as mysteriously as he had appeared, leaving behind the proof that even in the darkest situations, protection can come from the most unexpected places. For the first time in days, I felt safe, truly safe. And as I went back inside, shutting the door behind me, I whispered softly to myself, "I survived. I'm stronger than fear, and I control my life now." That night, I realized something crucial. Fear might follow you. Danger might stalk you. But courage is a choice. And once you claim it, nothing can take it away. From that day on, I never saw the world the same way. I saw it sharp, aware, ready, and I never underestimated the power of protection, guidance, or my own strength again.